All right, welcome to another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buck What You Heard on Twitter. Just be sure to follow me. I'll follow you back. This year, we just finished the draft. We've just finished the postseason or the end of the off season. We're going into camp, and we're about to see how some of these picks are going. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, former co-host from way back in the day when Buck What You Heard was first starting out, Peter Blake. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Draft is over. Undrafted free agents have been signed. I'm sure we're going to see some other moves from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But what are your overall thoughts on what Tampa has done, and have they done enough to really help themselves to be a playoff contender, considering some of the moves the other teams have made in the NFC South?
Well, it's an interesting question, you see, because before the draft, I said this team is going to be a 10-6 team. And then with the draft, I expected them to address the defensive line, especially the defensive end, a little bit earlier in the draft. And they didn't necessarily do that. So what do we take out of that? Well, Devin White goes number one. Obviously, he was the player that they wanted to take. You go in the second round with Sean Bunting. There's some questions about him because of WalterFootball.com, he was 35th ranked corner, but he definitely seems like he fits this defense. They go back in, they trade out of the third round when you most likely could have gotten Chase Winovich or Jalen Ferguson, somebody like that, even Giselle Polite, Florida. And they get a corner and a safety, and then they don't address the defensive line until the fourth round. Nelson and, of course, Beckner in the sixth round. So overall, what they're telling you right now is that it was the coaching last year, and basically they believe they have the defensive line. They believe they have the horses up front to get after the quarterback. I'm not so sure about that, but it is a different defense, and if you do trust Arians and you do trust Jason Light, especially Arians and his coaching staff, you have to take a wait and see approach at this point. Was it disappointing that they didn't go in the second or the third round and get defensive linemen and defensive ends that could possibly help this team? Absolutely. Is it disappointing that they drafted 9 secondary players since 2016? What does this draft tell you? Basically, some of the guys on this team are not going to be on this team going forward because they don't obviously fit Todd Bowles' system. So I guess what we have to look at it is the fact that you started out with Devin White, and then after that, very questionable, especially with the fact of drafting a kicker in the fifth round, who although was a Lou Groza award-winning finalist, you think you could probably go for an offensive lineman or somebody of that ilk at that point. But once again, Jason Light and Bruce Arians are drafting a kicker, so especially Jason Light. So I don't know what to think of this draft. I think always we jump to the conclusion, the knee-jerk reaction of saying, did this team get everything they needed? They feel like they have, so you have to take at least a 2 to 3 year approach and see how these prospects work out.
It's interesting you say that. I wasn't thrilled with the draft on the days the draft was picked. And I've had a chance to kind of sit back and look at, what they've gotten. And I will say this, there has to be enough pieces here to draw Bruce Arians out of retirement to come, because he's not going to take on a building project. I can tell you that. He would have never taken on a building project. Otherwise, he would have stayed in Arizona to help fix that team. I think, as I've had a chance to calm down and look at these picks, didn't get the positions in the trenches that I thought they would. And you kind of have to ask yourself, was the coaching that bad? I mean, you saw games. I mean, you said it yourself. We've seen games where they were just flat out coached on both sides of the ball. It makes you wonder about the coaching on the offensive lines, the defensive line. Just a lot of different things that it just makes you kind of scratch your head and think, well, they've looked at way more game film than me and you have put together in all of our lives, probably in this offseason. So they're well aware of where their needs are. And, again, what they've served notice to all these incumbent cornerbacks and secondary personnel, letting them know that, hey, You got guys coming in here to compete. They're not married to the majority of this team, and that's what makes this offseason different. They've got a different look at some of these guys, and there may be guys that we thought should be gone that are getting an opportunity to play because maybe they see something in them. So I've had a chance to calm down, look at some of the picks, get an idea on where we are as a team, and to be very honest, Santos needs competition. I realize that it's a fifth round pick. Just kind of have to wait and see, how this all pans out. But again, it's going to be nice that you're going to have competition at all positions. So, with the exception of quarterback, and your number one wide receiver, maybe number two, but you're going to have competition everywhere, and the best players are going to be on the field come day one.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you trust in what Bruce Arians is doing and what Todd Bowles is doing on defense, that you would say, well, it most likely is coaching. It seems like they have a better coaching staff. They have a lot more teachers. They have a bigger coaching staff. So not only are they going to focus on the players that are here, but also rookies that are coming in, which is what he's talked about. But you look at the draft overall, there could be some players that are out of here. I think the big question coming in before the draft and still at this point is, what do you do with Gerald McCoy? Because you only have about $1.7 million where you're able to sign your own players. You have to sign these draft picks. It's going to be about $10 million. So what do you do at this point with Gerald McCoy? And if you think about what they've done draft-wise, you could actually make the assumption that they most likely may keep Gerald McCoy and they may cut some other players, say like a Cameron Brate, even Levante David has been talked about, as crazy as it sounds. Or they could get really creative and go with cutting a William Golston or some other players to basically free up that $10 million so they're able to sign their draft picks. Because, look, they have to sign their draft picks. So somebody's not going to be on this team. Yeah. So is it going to be McCoy? Is it going to be Levante David? Is it going to be Cameron Brate? Do you trade him and get some value? To me, the great thing, it doesn't make sense because, look, you get rid of Deshaun Jackson, you get rid of Adam Humphries, and now you're getting rid of Cameron Brate. And I get it, he doesn't block, but he's Jameis Winston security blankets. So not only have you gotten rid of Adam Humphries, but you've also gotten rid of Cameron Brate. Does that make sense to you? Gerald McCoy, 31 years old. Is he still a good player in this league? He's going to be a 6-sack guy. That's what he's been. Is he going to get any better than that? Remains to be seen. Levante David, would you get rid of a linebacker that basically has been one of your best players on defense with bad defenses overall when you bring in a new defensive system that would actually cater to him? And then for me, William Golston most likely could be cut because of the Nelson pick. You could cut some other players like a Ryan Smith, who's about $2.8 million. So you have to get really creative here, but you have to free up at least $9 to $10 million in order to sign your draft picks.
Yeah. I believe that they will get this done. I believe that they will get the draft pick signed. I'm not real concerned about that. I guess more and I really don't even know if this is a concern. We saw last year where Dirk Koetter, over the past 2 years, Dirk Koetter has been experimenting with the offensive line, playing people that really in positions they really shouldn't be in. And we saw a lot of that. And, to be very honest, there was no real reason for it. When you have a Pro Bowl right guard in Ali Marpet and you're moving him all over the line, there's just really no reason for that. I look at some of the moves that have been made in with the previous regime, and you just kind of scratch your head and wonder, what if they were playing the way they were drafted? Vernon Hargreaves, man press. What if you have him playing man press? Some of your other cornerbacks, having them playing where it's not their strength. I think you just don't know. I believe that these guys, there's so many of these guys I want to see under a different coaching staff and see if it's, because I believe they have the physical tools to do it. Noah Spence. Noah Spence is a guy that, I find it very hard to believe that he forgot how to play football. And the fact that he wasn't being utilized, I really believe that this is a guy that, I would like to see him in an opportunity in this 3-4 defense to see what he can do. So again, I'm taking the wait and see approach right now with this team, with Bruce Arians and this team and uh, this coaching staff. And you have a lot of teachers on this coaching staff. And I think that they can really get the mindset of some of these players around. And again, I talked about this on a previous podcast, but you look at the New England Patriots. They're a team that you looked at them as a whole and you're like, I don't see them going to the Super Bowl last year, but they played as a collective unit. And that is going to be the difference right here this year is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing as a collective unit, offense, defense, 4 quarters of football, and a coach that's competent that can get these guys out here in position to win these games. These games are going to be crucial in the middle part of the season because that's where the Bucs have really fell off is the middle part of the season, and they've picked up on the back end of the season. And that's going to be something that I'll really be watching is how do they do game 6, game 7, game 8, game 9, game 10? Those are the games that they really need to go out there and win. So again, and we saw where the injuries and we saw just playing out of position. We just saw a lot of undisciplined play. We really hope they get that cleaned up. I believe that there's a lot of pieces on this team that can be successful. And, you've got these other guys coming in here to push some of the veterans out here to see if we can get the best people on the field.
Yeah, and you bring up a astute point because here's the thing. You have a home game week 3, and then you don't have a home game until week 10. So this team is going to get the opportunity. You're going to really get to see the opportunity, Bruce Arians is, to see how mentally strong this team is going forward. Because they're going to be on the road a lot, and they're going to face a lot of tough teams. So I think it's a nice teaching tool for this team. But with that being said, it's still a tough schedule, and you still have to get off to a good start. And you're exactly right. This team has never had, problems with getting off to a strong start. The problem is the middle of the season and the back end of the season. So, look, if the coaching is here now, there's no excuses. You have to see something from Jameis Winston in this offense, but especially this defense giving up 29 points. So if the Bucs are good with JPP and Carl Nassib, and if they have McCoy on this team or they don't, Devin White has to come in, Levante David, a lot of these unprovens have to come in and start right away. And if not, then you would have to say this draft is disappointing. But I think, Devin White's a special player. It seems like they have a plan of using him. There was no doubt that he was going to be the pick. I prefer Josh Allen, but just listening to Bruce Arians and his comments, he believes he can do creative things, not only off the edge, but also in the middle of the defense. Plus, he's a third down linebacker that not only can get after it, but also can cover. And look, you need a linebacker that can cover that backside. You have an Alvin Kamara, you have a Christian McCaffrey, you have a Devontae Freeman. So if you have a fast linebacker that's going to run in the 4-4s, and you're going to a situation where it's 3rd and 5, then you're going to feel good about that situation moving forward with White being a middle linebacker. And look, if the Bucs are ready to move on from Quan Alexander and Gerald McCoy, and White is the new face of the defense, let's see what happens at this point.
Yeah, and to be very honest, man, you have to be honest about this. I thought that Quan Alexander was a liability at times in coverage. And there were times where he's taking bad angles and just flat out missed tackles. I think this guy may be an upgrade. That remains to be seen. And if he can stay healthy and stay on the field, he's been a leader at LSU, and just everybody that I've talked to about this pick has been said nothing but positive things. So I think that this pick may pan out for the Bucs to where they can, they have that guy, they have their leader on the field, and he can step in and make those calls and get players in position and stuff. So those are the kind of things I'm actually looking forward to. And again, I hate to keep going back to Noah Spence, but we saw what Noah Spence did prior to getting injured, and he was 100% healthy. I think this will be a good season for him. He's fresh. He's had time to kind of sit back. He's got a new coaching staff. He will definitely in camp get a lot more playing time, and he'll get a lot more looks to see what we can do with him. And he'll definitely get coached up by a guy like a Todd Bowles that can get you in a position to succeed. And I'm actually looking forward to the offensive line, as they do have an actual offensive line coach as of this year. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to make the whole thing about Jameis Winston, not having necessarily the coaching, you could make the same argument for the offensive line, and Harold Godwin's going to come in here and be able to get the most out of this offensive line. And if he can do that, then guys like Donovan Smith and guys like Ali Marpet and possibly Alex Kappa at the right guard will be able to develop more. And that's what you hope for at this point, because relatively they have a young offensive line, with the exception of Jensen being at center and, of course, DeMar Dotson. But the main key is the right guard. Your offensive line is going to be a lot better without Caleb Benenoch starting. So it's going to be either Earl Watford and then eventually Alex Kappa. And you're not drafting a guard in the third round to basically sit the bench. So eventually, I think this coaching staff envisions Kappa basically starting at that right guard spot. You have to get more out of Donovan Smith because of that big time contract. He struggles a little bit with consistency, but he definitely has a lot of potential, and that's why he was signed. And then Ali Marpet on that side. So this offensive line can definitely come together. And obviously, they felt like the line is good for what it is. They just need to be coached up. And if they can get coached up, then maybe you see more of a difference. But obviously, coming into 2019, Gene, that the line will be better off without Caleb Benenoch starting at right guard. So if that's true, then I think this line will be better off coming into 2019, if that makes sense.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And again, just with everything that's going on, having a chance to kind of sit back, look at some of these players that we've gotten, and just, hey, I'm for this coaching staff to succeed. And I've been saying this since during the offseason. The Bucs are long overdue for making it to the playoffs, and that's my concern. Is this team getting to the playoffs? The season ticket holders and the fans that religiously go to these games, and just Bucs fans in general, are overdue for something like this. So, NFC South championship, going to the playoffs, something like that. This needs to happen. I mean, this is where my expectations are. I mean, you've got two underwhelming seasons in a row. It's time for this team to get there. So, and Willie Horace in the chat was saying this team has been undercoached since Lovie Smith got fired. So, again, let's see.
Even before that, yeah. I mean, the great thing here with this coaching staff, the biggest thing when they came in is they said Jameis Winston's our guy. Okay. The previous coaching staff hasn't said that. They didn't have the confidence in that young kid. So that in itself is going to be huge. And then on top of it, with everything that's been going on, he's not predicating his talent to his system. He's using his talent to the system. So let's say OJ Howard doesn't fit his system. He's going to make OJ Howard fit his system. He's not going to cut him or trade him a la like Lovey did with Darrelle Revis. And it still pains me to this day you couldn't find a way to fit Revis in. I get it. He's making $16 million. But that's what a lot of coaches do. Arians came in and says, we're going to look at this talent. We're going to use the talent that we have. We're going to build it around our system instead of, trying to say, well, the system, by all accounts, is the one that is the whole thing. Right. So what you basically have to look at this point is not only do you have a coach that's going to know his talent and know how to use it to the best of the ability, but also coach it up. And because Bruce Arians is a coach, quarterback whisperer, basically he's going to be able to get the most out of Jameis Winston, which I think by all accounts is one of the most important positions on this team. But it's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the defense. 26 points average ever since Winston has been a starting quarterback. So you have to fix that. You also have to provide balance. You have not had that balance with the running back since Doug Martin rushed for 1,000 yards. You had Peyton Barber with the 800 yards, so you have to get that back, and you have to also fix the offensive line. But 29 points by your defense, and you score 28, you're going to lose. So the biggest problem on this team is the defense. You would have to say going into 2019, you feel a lot better with Todd Bowles coaching the defense than Mike Smith, right?
Most definitely. I think the biggest problem for me was just games that should have been coached a lot better than they were, and there were games that the Bucks could have won. You talk about the running game. The Bucks were not committed to the run last year. They just were not committed to the run. And Peyton Barber gets 800 plus yards. Could you imagine if they had committed to the run and they schemed a little better than what they did? There were games, and a game that really stuck out to me was the second Carolina Panthers game, in which they had this lead, but because they hadn't committed to the run, because they weren't willing to run the ball, they let Carolina get back in that game towards the back end of the game. And that right there just really frustrated me, because you've got a running back, you've got some running backs. Let's get them in here. Let's scheme some things up to where they can be utilized, and you can run out the clock and win this game without having to get stressed out about it. But again, you've got a new coach here. You've got a new coaching staff. I think a lot of these players will get opportunities. I believe that Bruce Arians is committed to the run. It just will. I'll be really interested to see what this roster looks like come day one. Because as I always say, and Michael Pless always says, this roster is fluid, and they're not through making moves, regardless of what you may think about the salary cap. They're not through making moves, and you will continue to see moves all the way up till day one.
Well, that's why I say Gerald McCoy could be the one that's actually cut or traded at this point, because if you cut him or you trade him, that cuts off that $13 million, and then it leaves you with another $5 million. And maybe you can explore that second wave of free agency on June 1st, either with an Ezekiel Ansah or Muhammad Wilkerson, who has experience in Todd Bowles' defense before. But at this point, you have to take care of what you have right now, and that would be your draft picks. And until you free up some of that money, we really can't talk about any moves being made. All we could talk about is, either cutting McCoy, cutting David, trading Cameron Brate, or cutting somebody else.
Yeah. Again, we're just gonna have to kind of sit back again and just see what's going on. Let's see. I'm gonna run through the chat real quick, because the chat is what the everybody that's checking it out. I appreciate everybody. Again, a lot of thoughts on the draft. It's almost 50-50. You got a lot of people that weren't real thrilled with the draft. I was one of those guys, day one, day two, day three. I just was like, what's going on here? But I've come to the conclusion that I have to let this play out. We have to see what happens. We have to see, again, what Jason Licht's body of work ends up being compared to a Bruce Allen, compared to a Mark Dominic, or compared to Rich McKay. So again, that's where what you have. I mean, but if you look at it right now, you've got a Jameis Winston who went to the Pro Bowl his rookie year. Ali Marpet has been to the Pro Bowl. Mike Evans, of course, been to the Pro Bowl. Quan Alexander, when he was here, he had gone to the Pro Bowl as well. Just a lot of players that he's brought in that have done well, and it's just not playing as a collective team has really hurt this team, in my opinion. There have been games where the defense has played well and the offense is not. And then there have been a lot of games where the offense has played well and the defense is just giving it up in the fourth quarter. So again, I think they can get to this. I really believe that this team will pull this together. I think we're going to be surprised. I think we're all going to be surprised by, what happens. Because you're talking about going from Dirk Cutter, Mike Smith, to Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians, and all the talent that he's brought in on this coaching staff. So again, I'll get more in depth on this. I have a lot more to say, as we go, as we move forward. XLU Garvey, you know what? And who drafts man corners that play soft zone? Exactly. That's exactly. I mean, you can't. I can't argue with that at all. So, again, we can all look back now on body of work and say, okay, Mike Smith didn't do what he was supposed to do. And when you really think about it, Mike Smith should have been fired after Julio Jones ended up with 200 yards and said what he said in the interview, that he basically knew what was coming every time. That should have been an indicator right then and there. But, we've moved on. New coaching staff. Let's see what they do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's all we can do because you're looking at it. You have high expectations because Bruce Arians is coming in. Some people say 7-9, some people say 8-8. I'm a little bit optimistic at this point, but the schedule is tough. What you have to think is that the players have gotten better and the coaching has gotten better. So if the coaches have gotten better and the players have obviously gotten better, then they'll be able to play against these tough teams. But it's going to be something to watch.
Yeah.
It just seems like we're always talking about new coaches and new players. Hopefully, you can get some consistency. But what this organization has essentially told you in the offseason is they've signed guys to 1 year contracts. Basically, it's a wait and see approach. They have the talent here. They believe they have the coaching here. So now there's no excuses at this point.
Yeah, most definitely. So again, man, just get your popcorn out and get ready for the ride because it's gonna be an interesting ride this year. And if you are getting ready to get credentialed to be in some of if I am I not letting the cat out of the bag here, am I? Your credential
No, not at all. We're
your
worth
credential for
Bucks Report, which has a 61,000 following on Facebook, and bucksreport.com, and the Sports Web, which is the evolution of sports talk television on a nightly basis. And we're definitely, have an ongoing relationship with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll be covering it. Watch me on Facebook and again on bucksreport.com. There is something or plan, if you will, that is coming for fans out there who don't necessarily just want to stay at home and watch the road games. We got something in store, so definitely check out bucksreport.com or Bucks Report on Facebook. And of course, the evolution of sports talk television, the Sports Web.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it. Guys, check me out on Wednesday. This was just kind of a test and, just making sure the audio is good. I'm so glad to have audio back. I mean, it's just been like living in the dark ages. Curse you Windows, curse you XSplit and all you guys. I'm just glad to have it back. I'm not, yeah, it has aged me some while. I think I can sleep well tonight. You know, I'm not for the past 3-4 years. I haven't really given what I think the record's going to be for the Bucks, but the Bucks have to go to the playoffs. I'm sorry, that's just my mindset right now. The Bucks have to go to the playoffs. It's been so long, and you have a coach in place, and I believe it's been a long time since the Bucks have had a real coach in place that comes in with a scheme. He has a game plan. He's a teacher. He brings in other teachers, and he's teaching his coaches to become coaches. I mean, you're looking at a good system that if it works out well, could run for a long time when you really look at it, the way he has everything set up. So, again, I'm looking forward to this season, and let's see some competition, and let's see the best players out on the field. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Sounds good to me. And you know what? Because I was your former co-host, I need to get on here a little bit more with you, and you can come on the Sports Web sometime. How about that?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I'm gonna invade there tonight, I believe.
Yes, you are. We're going to try to see how this works.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Be sure to check us out on Wednesday. I'll have Michael Pless back on with me, and we'll be talking. I want to give a roll call because I always do. These guys are the best. Willie Horace, Buck the World 2.0, XLU Garvey, Eric Hardnett, what's going on? Tall FL guy, thank you so much. Let's see who else. Oh, Mr. Bucks Nations, what's really going on, man? We got to get together sometime. Let's see. Lane Johnston, as usual, always active in the chat. But these guys come in here. But Demand, what's going on? Rex Dillon from Buckaholics, Arizona chapter of Buckaholics. Thank you for coming on. Just everybody, you're appreciated. So just know that I don't want you to think I'm forgetting about you guys, and I'll definitely give you more time to get your thoughts out there, because without you guys, I don't do this. So just the fact that you guys are taking time to check it out is really appreciated. And again, we'll be on for a full hour on Wednesday. And James Hall, thank you very much. yeah, I enjoy getting interesting guests. I've got some really cool guests lined up for this off season going into the regular season. So, Tall FL guy, of course, man, you're always in the chat and you guys aren't talking crazy. And these guys come on here and they come on here and they talk football. They're not arguing amongst themselves. It's not a pissing contest. It's these guys are passionate about the Bucks and they talk about the Bucks, and I appreciate that. So, again, guys, look for the show. It's a lot of improvements that are gonna come. And I really hope that you guys can be a part of that. But that's it for us. And any last thoughts before I let you go?
Yeah, we say 3 things on the sports web. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
That's right. And we're out.